Welcome back to the Paul Jr. podcast. I got a good friend of mine here today, John Szalay, aka Jersey John, and we go way back. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. I've learned a lot from this guy, and through the years, I've consulted with him. I've known him for many years now. Now that we're in Long Beach Island, we're locals.
Yeah, you're like my neighbor now.
Yeah. So
right around the corner.
Yeah. So let's get into it, man. We go, we go way back, and I got to tell you, since the day we met, I was always very impressed with your skill set. I've seen a lot of people who are good at things through the years. I work with a lot of creative people. I enjoy surrounding myself with people who have a skill set, all different kinds: engraving, welding, grinding, machining, you name it, painting, everything and anything. And I remember the first time I went to your place, and you were like nickel plating in this little box in the basement and refinishing furniture, and you had all these old bikes and everything like that. And I just wonder if maybe we could talk about that aspect of your life. I wonder, where did you learn to become? I know I grew up in the steel business, and so I feel like, I have a creative gift.
Yeah, obviously.
But the mechanical side of it really came from working for my father in the steel business and being given that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I just always wondered from that day on, and I never really asked you about it, like, where did you learn your trade or your skill set,
I mean, mostly I'm self-taught. That's the reality situation. My dad was a lawnmower mechanic. He had a really pretty big lawnmower business and repair shop called Stelton Mowers in Piscataway, New Jersey. And that was in the late 50s through the 60s and into the 70s. And, you got out of the Korean War and started this business to raise a family. We have 6 kids in our family, we all got to eat, Plus we went to Catholic school and, tuition and stuff like that to pay. So, and he did wonderful. At one time he had 6 employees. He carried the Huffy brand of lawnmowers. But also, it was cool because it also had a brand of he would go to Italy every year with my mom, and they would bring these Italian bikes I remember there was Huffy had these small mini bikes that they sold. It was
motorized?
Yeah, they're motorized.
Really?
They're mini bikes and little motorcycles, and they actually had big bikes. Had a Renegade, was kind of the big dirt bike. This was all the 60s and 70s. It was like the Italian, Fantic brand.
Yeah. So they probably licensed the name Huffy.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. So, but they were mostly all Italian, little
made. All them little mini. Yeah, there's so many little.
I always had a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I mean, from the time I was 6 years old, I had this little bike called a Fanticino. It was a Fantic Chino, but it was like a lime green, and it had orange. It was so bright. It was like a little sport bike, and I rode that thing around in my yard.
Wow.
It was so much fun. It was so cool, and that's my first memory of getting into motorcycling. And my dad had the lawnmower shop, so I did learn that trade at a very young age.
Like more like wrenching, nuts and
cleaning
bolts.
lawnmowers with gasoline. That's the way we did. He had to get all the junk out, wiping them down. But he also told me how to do a valve job on a lawnmower. How to.
So you started to get your basic mechanics, basically.
But I wasn't even really that interested at the time.
Right.
It's so weird. That's not where my focus was. My focus, he taught me all that because, it was just something we did.
Yeah.
As father and son. It was wonderful being in the shop, but I was young. I mean, we moved out of that. I was out of that when I was in 3rd grade, and then we moved down to the shore, and he basically closed up the lawnmower shop after that. So I don't have that much experience with lawnmowers, actually. But I do have, I remember the grease and the smoke and
it had an impact.
Yes, a little bit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then basically what I started doing was when I moved down here through high school, I was very involved with woodworking through the wood shop in school. Mr. Hulse was one of my best woodworking teachers. Woodshop teachers, and that was going through 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th, all through my high school years. And that was a big inspiration for me. I mean, that was something I really enjoyed doing. When I was an avid book reader. I bought every damn book that was involved with any kind of woodworking or folk art. The Foxfire series from Elliot Wellington, Elliot. Yeah, he was a teacher in Georgia.
Okay, and he had a book series.
He had a book series what I called the Foxfire books, and I got that books when I was probably 12 years old.
Wow.
And it was all about early America and the Appalachian Mountains, and folk art and how they did things all by hand, to being self-sufficient. And to me, that it struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very interested in that whole genre, the whole the folk life, the folk art, the way that things were made in America. And my dream was to become, a cabinet maker and build folk art and do things like that. But it was hard because I'm in South Jersey.
Right.
So what I did through high school was I was starting my own business. Mr. Gratian, my math teacher, in ninth grade, they had arcades over in Seaside Heights.
Okay.
And he needed a bunch of cabinets made for his arcade. So you put all the little, tchotchkes in, the toys that you wanted for playing skee ball and stuff. So he needed all these cabinets made, and it's all Formica work. And I was like, this is no problem. This is like easy.
Right.
And I had a shop at my house. It was actually
like a little wood shop?
Yeah, the little wood shop I moved out of my bedroom. I moved into my brother's bedroom and turned my bedroom into a wood shop. So I had a table saw in there. And my dad was always bringing home a piece of equipment for me. He brought me home a bandsaw. They were very, very supportive.
Right.
I was making cabinets in my bedroom at the time.
In your old bed?
In my own bedroom. That's how it started.
Wow.
And then when I started doing, really started making a living, my dad had another lawnmower shop in Wells Mills Road. He opened another one called Star Mower, and above it was a loft. I moved all my equipment in there, and that was the start of my business. And I was 15 years old.
Wow.
When I'm 15, I'm making cabinets. Actually 14 years old. I'm actually building cabinets. I did all the stuff for Mr. Gratian for his arcade. Did all the Formica work, installed it, and it was like a lot of money. I'm like, right. It's great.
Yeah, you were loving life and making money.
I was making money all through high school instead of going and getting a job somewhere. I was
working at a store.
I was self-employed,
right?
And doing it. I'm like, this is great. Working above my dad's shop and with his support, and that's kind of like I kept reading about things, kept doing things with woodworking and trying to elevate my skill set. And I did that through reading.
Wow.
And just there was Fine Woodworking magazine was a big inspiration of me. I had issue 1, number 1, 1972.
Wow.
When it first came out. And, it's just that was inspiration. That was really fine craft. And it was hard to do fine craft in South Jersey because you had no place to sell it. It wasn't close up to New York. Didn't have that,
the money wasn't there.
The money wasn't there.
Right.
But I did have enough skills to do Formica work. And I did stuff for Ocean County Library. I did a bunch of doctors and lawyers around the town, and did a lot of commercial cabinetry just so I can buy more equipment and grow,
keep increasing the business,
pay for my subscription to Fine Woodworking magazine and Wooden Boat magazine. Everything I was totally a nerd.
Yeah, that was great.
I just worked my ass off to develop my skills.
Wow,
and get involved with it. It was fascinating. It
still
is.
Yeah, you're still loving it.
Oh yeah.
So when did the restoration aspect kick in? Because you started to restore fine furniture over time, right?
Yeah. So this is 1978, and I'm going through high school. I'm in 10th grade, 11th grade. I'm like, I need a bigger shop. I got to figure something out. And my dad knew it too. He knows how busy I was, and I'm hauling all the wood up these stairs, taking all the stuff out this little barn door in the front. We're pushing it out the front, hopefully not crashing. It was nuts working where I was working. It's this little
it was tight.
It was tight. And so what happened was we're sitting there on Saturday morning, and I'm in 11th grade. Saturday, working at my dad's shop, my shop. And we're reading the paper every morning. We do 7 o'clock in the morning, reading the paper, like Asbury Park Press. He's like, John, that old bank building in Barnegat is going up for auction this morning. I'm like, I know that bank. It's a 1914 bank building. It's a beautiful built bank building. I said, Dad, let's go look at it. He said, all right. My dad was up for anything. He was he would go to auction. He was down for anything.
That's great.
He was always going to flea markets, selling stuff. I mean, we would vend at flea markets. He'd go to auctions with me. We went to Fort Mott when I was 13 years old, with the first antique motorcycle meet.
Okay.
We went all over the place. So my dad was totally cool about supporting what I was doing. So we go down there, and I'm looking at this bank building. And the place is open. The parking lot's packed with people, and the guy's selling the bank. He's selling the drugstore across the street. He's selling the parking lot and another property upstream.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 17.
Wow.
And I had some money.
Right.
I mean, I had some money.
Yeah, you're already fully in business.
I was in business. I'm like, and my dad was like, all right, let's go. I was like, Dad, no, wait. Let's hang out and check this place out. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning. The auction's starting. The auctioneer's there. My dad registers to bid. I'm like, cool. All right, he's got a bidding number, right? And I don't know what he's up to.
Was it run down pretty good?
Oh my God, the place was a mess. I mean, this guy who had bought it, the bank closed in like 1974, 75, and the guy had bought it and just used it as storage. He put tons of stuff in there. The roof was pouring water in the roof. The bank didn't put any money into the place.
Yeah, I think you told me there was like a tree growing out.
There's a tree growing out of the freaking roof, out of one of the windows. I mean, it was ridiculous how bad it was. Broken windows, needed new plumbing, new heating, new electric, needed everything.
Wow.
So, and everything in the whole place, it had beautiful oak trim and these round top windows. And I fell in love.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
wow, it's really unusual to be at that age, to see the value in something like that. Most 17-year-olds, I don't care what era you're in, have no idea of, have no vision or foresight or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was like looking at all these magazines, and I had a lot of inspiration from other people.
Yeah.
Think about what other shop owners were doing and seeing what they had. First, you need square footage.
Yeah.
And you need a good, cool building. Another thing that I looked at this building was like, it's in a downtown area. And there's like 25 antique shops at this time in Barnegat. Literally.
Really?
There's like 25 different antique
Now there's
shops.
only like two or three. Yeah.
Yeah. So it boiled down, and there was a couple co-ops there. And I'm like, it just kind of started clicking in my head what's going to go on. This might be, I could have a cabinet shop in here. And I wasn't even thinking about antique furniture at the time. It wasn't even in the back of my mind. I knew how to build furniture.
Right. But you hadn't restored it.
But I hadn't restored a damn thing in my life at this point. And I'm like, okay. So we go off, the auctioneer's going off, they start high. It starts off like $150,000. Nobody's bidding. It goes down to 60, goes down to 30, goes down to 20, goes down to 15 grand. My dad, I was like poking my dad, and he puts his hand up. I'm like, I got 15 grand in the bank at the time. I was 17. I got 15 grand in my bank.
Right. You can own that
right now. All of a sudden, the lights are going off. I'm like freaking out. I had no idea this place was going to go that cheap. So anyway, it went up more. The guy was bidding against us. I got the building for like $37,500. Okay. I'm like, oh, now I'm freaking out. Where am I come with the rest of the money? And my dad's like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And we did it. I was 17. I couldn't even sign a legal contract. I wasn't even.
Wow. So he had to sign for you.
But my dad signed.
Wow, you had such confidence.
Oh yeah, my dad and my mom were great supporters. My whole family was. I mean, everybody kind of knew. Just kind of let me do my thing, And my mom and dad were like, my mom was like, he's gonna cut all his fingers off on a saw. I'm like, don't worry about it, Mom. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But it was so cool that they supported me that way. Yes. And then my dad, we got a loan. He co-signed for me. And we were able to pay it off. And I had the thing paid off in a couple of years, It was like no brainer. And then I went to work. As soon as I bought that building, I started
working on it.
I had to do something. It was in May or April that the auction was. And so I had to gut the upstairs. I had one to make it living quarters up there. And so I wanted to strip down all the woodwork, take all the paint off it. So, Red Devil P77 was the only stripper you could buy at the hardware store. And I just buying cases.
Yeah.
And I was like putting it on there and the paste remover. And, it was in summertime. And by September, I had the upstairs all done, ready to basically live in. Had to get a full bath in there, a full kitchen, but it had a fireplace in it too. And I'm like, this place is so cool. And I just loved it. I fell in love with the building. I mean, I started pulling the windows apart, putting them back together again. And, by, I think December or January, I think I moved in there, got a CO to live in there
So you moved out by the time you were what, 18?
Yeah.
17, 18?
Yeah.
Wow. I think you were living in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then what you started working out of there?
Yeah,
started doing your woodwork out of there?
The first thing I did was the basement was the best place to start, because the basement was all office space down there. So they had finished it off. They had electricity down there.
That was the most useful space.
Yeah, and plus I hired an electrical company to come in and put new sub panel in to get new electric in there and wire up my shop. So all that stuff was done right away. And the first thing I did was concentrate on a workspace, so I could move out of my dad's shop above the loft and get
work.
Because I'm shaking in my shoes. Like I'm got to pay a mortgage now.
Right.
I'm like,
responsibility just
kicking in. I'm
like, and reality.
I'm having the biggest panic attack in my life. I'm like, damn, this is freaking nuts.
Yeah, but it was a good motivator.
I tell you what, dude, that was the best thing I ever did in my life, and that was 45 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
I'm 62 now.
Yeah,
I'm going. I think I'm going to be 62 in the next week.
Wow. And then we're going to meet. Happy birthday, almost.
Thank you.
That's great. Oh, you'll go see all those guys at the auction then, huh?
All the
All your buddies.
all the Cannonball guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the ride of coast to coast each year. It's kind of a gathering point for us. Yeah, and plus it's a great. But Urban Hirsch's collection is going off at this auction,
Oh, nice.
and it's a huge collection of antique, really super rare antique motorcycles.
Really?
So there's some stuff there I want to buy.
Nice.
Absolutely. So
Good.
looking forward to it.
All right. So you build this place out, you start doing the furniture. At what point in time did restoration come in? People started bringing you furniture. Hey, can you fix my...
Right. Because having the cabinet making background, because build pretty much anything at this point, any piece of furniture, and do dovetails on drawers and, build it up. So these antique dealers were bringing me stuff, and they were bringing me a chest of drawers. I was missing a drawer. And could you
guys match it?
And I'm like, yeah, no problem, man. This is like easy. And then how much could I charge to do this? I was making more money refinishing stuff than I was building.
Making it from scratch.
Yeah. It would be like, here's a beautiful piece of furniture, 5-drawer tall oak chest of drawers. This is like the beginning of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Furniture was starting to ramp up and get...
Yeah, that was hot. There was a hot run there of furniture. Now furniture is kind of dead.
It's dead now. Yeah, things back then in the 80s. Dude, I was selling stuff to Bruce Springsteen.
Really?
Yeah. It was crazy. That's how good it was. It was nuts. I was getting, for a round oak tablecloth feet, you can get like $5,000 for a really good one.
Oh.
You can't get that stuff away now.
No, you can't give any of that.
I know. It's so weird.
Unless it's super special. It might.
Yeah.
I feel like that's cyclical. That and the country stuff and some toys have kind of fallen off.
Right now, your showroom is beautiful here. It's surrounded by amazing pieces of advertising. Signage is really hot.
Yeah.
And then
I love this stuff.
Exactly.
Man.
But at that time, furniture was hot, and I knew it. And things were going nuts. And I had the ability. I didn't open my antique shop up then, but I knew what I was going to do. I took the lobby and I gutted the lobby. After I was done with the apartment up there and got my shop in there, the next focus was getting the lobby.
I like the lobby.
The lobby's
got
22-foot ceilings,
yeah,
round oak windows. Yeah. It's gorgeous.
And I'll tell you, it's one of my favorite buildings in
Ocean County.
In like 100-mile radius. Absolutely. It really is. It's got the look.
It captivated me. I loved the building. I loved the windows. Got me. The brickwork. The structure. And then I found there was a little booklet that came with the building, and it was like, and they said in 1914 they paid $85,000 to have that building built.
Wow.
In 1914.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, think about that.
Right. You paid a third of that when you got it.
Yes. And
yeah. So that was a lot of money back then.
The quality of the building is so good.
It's a First National
Bank.
First
National Bank.
Okay.
And so I opened up the lobby, made it all beautiful, and I opened up an antique shop called First National Antiques. And I made a sign, I hand carved a sign, Hutch Touch sign to the pounds pattern for the sign. And there's an old sign painter in Forked River. Mm-hmm. And he did that, and I hand carved a sign, like actually incised the letters into this pine boards, painted it all up with gold leaf. And, it hung out there. I had an antique shop in there for like 25 years.
Yeah.
Until furniture started.
And people would come in and buy, like every other antique shop, huh? Because I know now it's like Fort Knox. You can't even get on that. You can't even pull into the parking lot.
No,
you don't want anyone there.
I don't want anybody there.
Let's just be clear, right?
Yeah, I'm not shopping out over the public anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I've got to because my life has changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
So, but back then it was really good. I was selling, I was selling like $10,000 on a summer weekend on furniture. It was that good.
And you were living and working in the same space. So
and the
price was right.
The price was right. And also it was just like, I was just like really into it. I was in a good groove. Furniture was like really coming up. Oak furniture I was buying it for like at auctions down in Maryland at Crompton's for nothing. We were getting some stuff out of the cities, abandoned buildings.
So would you sometimes buy it, restore it, and then just put it out there to sell it? Oh, you're all ready to go? So that was the game. That was the game.
I would get a dresser in, strip it down, take it all apart, reglue it, make all the drawers work right, put 40, 50 hours into a dresser, and then and put it
make all your money,
and then make every last dime of it, in the shop. And then people were coming from Philly. My reputation was coming from was reaching Philly, was reaching New York. So I was getting designers into the shop, buying stuff. I was getting, arts and crafts furniture in there. And then because I had the ability to if a mirror harp was missing, I could reproduce it exactly the way it was. Right. And then using antique woods, and then making
for authenticity purposes.
Not just that, but color
It
matching.
looked right. Yeah,
Color
yeah, it looked
matching.
right. It was an aged wood.
Color, yes.
Yes, that's pretty awesome.
So, and that's kind of like how I got into the restoration trade, and doing veneer work and doing marquetry, doing bull work.
Heirlooms, like would people bring in family heirloom?
Yeah,
But
people
like this is been in our family.
That
200
started
years.
later. I started taking then like people's furniture and doing their bedroom sets and all that stuff later. Once the furniture market died, I kind of changed my business to like doing, restoring memories. And we had a lot of people from North Jersey moving down to South Jersey, and they're bringing their mother's furniture with them. So they're doing a lot of 1930s, 40s dining room sets, bedroom sets, and that was for a good 10 years. And just really hitting that really hard because there was a lot of influx of business coming in. And if I do a really nice job, people will come in. And I had people working for me here and there.
It's hard.
It's hard to find somebody who has that skill. Which, if they're that skilled, they're going to have their own.
Right, they're going to work for themselves.
Yeah,
that's in any trade.
Yeah,
just about.
So I had people like helping me out. Move furniture mainly, and then of course my son and stuff like that. He was fantastic, and I got married, had a kid. And it was like fantastic, and everything was working out really, really well, and just rolling with the punches. Yeah, because furniture market kind of died. Switching gears into doing heirloom furniture, restoring your memories, and doing all that stuff. And I was doing that up until, a couple years ago.
Right.
6-7 years.
Yeah, I remember coming in there and seeing you working on that, inlays and stuff like that.
Veneer work, inlay, bull work.
Yeah, water damage to it, and it's like a beautiful cabinet.
When Sandy hit here, I was doing tons of work, for Hurricane Sandy came through. And, it's just like, it was overwhelming. I just didn't have any chance to and then back in the day when I was making a lot of money, I was starting to buy antique motorcycle parts and pieces and stuff.
So that
was
the transition.
Yeah, and that's a whole.
So at the same time, you were starting to get this bug for early motorcycles.
Yeah, because I was looking at I was so passionate with the antique shop, but I love setting up my antique shop. I was going out to like different Brimfield and all the different shows in Atlanta and going out west to any antique shows. And setting up and selling there.
Now, was that also reading books on motorcycles like the wood, or that was a little bit more hands-on?
I joined the Antique Motorcycle Club of America. I had some great friends and some good mentors. Dick Newkirk was one of my good buddies. I met him at one of the shows, and he's just going to turn 90 next month. And this guy was like, he kind of showed me the ropes a little bit, There's other people too. Mm-hmm. There's other people too. And I was starting small. I was just getting into it. So I was buying Harley 45 stuff back in the 80s when it was, like nothing, next to nothing. It was just cool to have an antique bike and stuff like pieces and parts around. And I was, I built a hot rod, thanks to you. You inspired me to build a hot rod.
Oh, I did?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I built a hot rod trike with this crazy ass motor in it, custom frame.
That's fun.
And yeah, it was nuts. And it was like the first 3-wheeler with a soft tail frame in America.
Oh, yeah? You were early on that.
That was the first one. It was that company from Canada that made the frame for me, actually. It was...
Rolling Thunder?
No. I forget. It's been such a long time. But they made a soft tail adapter to take a Cervicar rear end.
Okay.
And that was the first hot one. But that was from watching your show, dude.
Really?
Yeah, that inspired me.
Had some inspiration.
You inspired
good.
me. Me and my son would watch your show, and like, this is so cool what you were doing, So
for sure. It was nonstop. It was like we would work in the shop, and then did our dinner break, and we'd go upstairs and we'd throw you on TV and Jesse James and everybody.
The chopper build-off stuff.
Yeah, all inspirational. Yeah, I think it was a good era in time for television, where people started building things again.
Yeah.
And that was inspiring to people. That's
hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw what was going on with you guys, and you guys were like making frames and doing custom work and custom paint job, the design element of it, it was freaky. It was so out of this world. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And that was great. It was, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny too, because when you talk about kind of being self-taught, I, in the same way, had people in my life that even coming up through the steel business, just where they taught me how to weld and grind and read a tape measure.
You grew up in that business.
I grew up in that business.
Yeah.
And it really sharpened my craftsmanship, my ability to work with my hands and make things. It might have just been a railing or stairs or, but I was making things and I loved it. It scratched an itch for me. But it wasn't until I was in like my mid-20s and my father afforded me the opportunity to build motorcycles that I realized I had creative ability.
Yeah,
And,
obviously.
and it wasn't taught. I wasn't good in art. I couldn't draw. I never did anything. I never read an article on it. I just had an inclination creatively. My mind started to kick in, and here's a product of everything now. But now that's 25 years ago that started,
Right.
and so time flies. But it's funny because I think some people have a natural inclination towards something. Like you with woodwork kind of opened the door for what was next. It was you had an appetite for it.
Right.
And it's nice to scratch that itch,
Yeah. You want to dig further into the things that really flip our switches, the things that inspire us.
Right.
So we want to dig deeper in what is the inspiration? Where's it coming from? How we're looking sometimes through nature, sometimes we're doing through architecture, sometimes through, ancient art.
It's funny too, you say, because you read the books, that kind of got you going, right? Those were your big inspiration.
Yeah,
got you going.
I was, as soon as we would go to the mall as kids, we'd go to Ocean County Mall, all the whole family, and then I would just go to the bookstore, and everybody else would go shopping and mall ratting it, and I would be like, I was in Walden Books.
You have your face buried in a book.
My face buried in the do-it-yourself section. Like what was going on? I was looking for the new things that were, and Eric Sloan, he was a writer on early American tools and how America was built, and I bought all his books, Reverence for Wood, Age of Barnes, A Vanishing Landscape. All his books were another inspiration. So it was all these different things. I subscribed to Mother Earth News magazine. It's a really crazy as a magazine for self-sufficiency, and it was like just because they had articles in there about solar power. It has articles in there living off the grid, and that appealed to me as well. Being self-sufficient,
right, not reliant
on not
outside sources so much.
It was just something being different than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like I wasn't interested in mainstream society at all.
Right.
I could give a shit.
Really?
I didn't care.
It's so funny too, because at that age, I ran from books. I couldn't stand I want to read. No, I had to read in school. I was suffering every day. I was crying every day.
No, dude, don't get me wrong. I sucked as a student as well.
Yeah.
I was not a great student. Math was like, oh my God, I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Algebra, no, I had nothing to do with it. I was history, yes, I was interested, and of course, I took architectural drawing and mechanical drawing for 4 years. That was a huge.
Oh, so that must have been a big one for you to lay out visualization, plan in advance, come up with drawings and ideas.
Not just that, but when I got into the antique restoration of motorcycles, and you have to reproduce a part, and I make carburetors, I make frames, fixtures, all different kinds of things. Any little part, I'd go find an original part from a collector and get it. I would reverse engineer it,
right,
and make a mechanical drawing with paper on a drafting table and actually draft everything out. I have reams of drawings from way back of Indian carburetors and racing carburetors and heads and valve assemblies and anything that you needed to restore these bikes that was missing. I was networking. I was restoring bikes for people because I wanted to get into their collection so I could borrow their damn carburetor.
Yeah, right.
And you get it. I would never. You can't reproduce anything accurately unless you have it in your hand.
Right.
So I would measure it down to the last 1,000 with micrometers, make a beautiful mechanical drawing, and that's where all that skill set from high school kicked in. Yeah, man. I'm like, I'm really glad I did this.
Right.
And so my drawings, look back at them, and it's like, man, it's such a cool reference. And now it's like they're always there.
Yeah, and just for nobody does that. Nobody does that type of work at all.
Now
the casting, it's all CAD.
Yeah.
Nobody does that by hand. Nobody does the casting.
I still do it by hand.
And the attention to detail is what you're into. I love that because I'm a purist when it comes to collectibles and doing things like that, right? So I love originality.
Yeah.
And so if you can't have the part and you're able to make it the way it was, that's the best you can get it.
Yeah.
As opposed to having what doesn't exist almost anymore. You're recreating something altogether. To me, that's one of the things about what you do that I've always been impressed by. And I'm not generally impressed by a whole lot, but I see your skill set, man, and I'm like, this guy's like a mad scientist over here.
I appreciate you getting the vibe I'm putting out there,
So then motorcycles come into play, and then what? That became a hobby for you, for yourself, like a personal thing?
Yeah, me and my son were making whatever parts or pieces like that. It was a hobby. Yes. At first, because I was being in an antique shop and always getting the most money for the earliest piece of furniture.
Right.
Like if you had like a Victorian era dresser from 1890s, okay, you could sell that for maybe, $1,500-$2,500. But if you had like a 1790s Chippendale,
Right, like 100 years earlier.
you're getting $6,000 or $7,000 or something like that. It was real deal.
Right.
So that's how I was like, okay, so let me put that same idea and the same thing into the antique motorcycle thing. I'm going to stop buying these Harley 45 and Harley,
Right, the more common stuff.
And I really want to start searching for the early and rare stuff.
The rare stuff.
And it just like clicked right there. And then I just sold a lot of that stuff off and used those funds to buy a frame. What you find first off is we go to Ole or we go to Wasion or Davenport, and you look around and you would find a motor.
Right.
You would find an old Indian motor from 1907 or 19. I remember I bought a 1907 Indian motor from the Antique Motorcycle Club magazine from some guy in Washington, from Earl Eckel. He was a racer. He raced in Vailsburg. His grandpa did, and he has his 1907 original paint Indian motor. And it was like $2,500. I'm like, I'll be right there, dude. I couldn't get there fast enough.
Yeah.
And I made a deal with him. I met this guy. He bought a lot of other stuff from him through the years. And you find a motor, and then you'll find a part here, a gas tank, another part, but you never
set of wheels.
Sometimes you'll find their hubs, but you never find the frames.
No.
They're hard.
Yeah, because they're in the ground somewhere.
Yes, they were scrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, the Boy Scouts had scrap drives, victory scrap drives in World War I.
They cleared out all the basements
Right,
of all the
man.
frames you
Yes,
could
all the stuff, all the frames.
Well, it helped the war effort at least.
They helped the war, but they would never get rid of the motors because the motors could do work.
Right. You put that single cylinder Indian 07 motor could run a flywheel. Right.
Yes, exactly. It could run a saw. So it was
stationary.
Because it was a value. So when the farmer, or when the guy bought a motorcycle in 1907, well, by 1912, or 1914, that motorcycle was outdated. It couldn't climb the hills like a 2-speed, like a Excelsior could or Harley. And then when the transmissions came out, nobody wanted the early stuff. They threw all the back of the barn.
It was obsolete.
Right, it was obsolete. So, but what they would do is they would say, they would take the motors out of them and they would throw the frames in the back on a scrap pile. Boy Scouts would come around. You got up to the
pile it up in the back.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of frames in the back. You can take them. So damn Boy Scouts, man.
So let's talk about the types of bikes you ended up getting into.
My focus was on early American motorcycles. I wasn't getting involved with British motorcycles or anything like that, or European bikes, because I saw the values. I saw what these bikes are selling for. I mean, that truly was
a driving factor.
Was the driving factor of me buying all these. I spent a lot of money on motors and parts and pieces, hubs. This stuff is expensive.
Yep.
But I was justifying it like, hey, I just saw like a 1907 Indian sell for $125,000.
Right. And you knew you were like halfway there on for half the money or less.
So I'm like kidding myself. I'm going to find a frame and buying all these pieces. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it takes 15 years for that to happen. But then you'll find a chassis for a Sears, and you have the motor, and you put all these pieces together. You got a bike. And then it's like
so is that when you started casting the different parts?
Yeah,
frames.
Well, that was kind of like we were doing. There was a big thing with overhead valve racing Indians.
It's a taller frame, right?
The board track racing. Stephen Wright came out with some great books. The American Racer. That inspired everybody to get into board track racing. He was telling the story of the American board track racing scene. The Indian racers, the Harleys, the Excelsiors, the Cyclones, all these sexy bikes.
Yeah, really cool frames with cool paint.
Oh my, not only the cool paint, but the history. I mean, there was an accident in Vailsburg, New Jersey, where 12 people died on the track, on this board track.
Yeah.
And they opened the track up in July. They closed it in September, And it's like, it was called, they would call them murderdromes. They were motordrome, but they called them murderdrome. Guys were dying, and this was a huge sport. The attendance for those motordrome races back in 12 and 13 was as much as a football game is now. They had 20,000 people.
I'll tell you, I got a trophy over there in my cabinet that was won by
Perry E. Mack. Yeah, he worked for Harley.
He did. I have a trophy that he won. It's got his name on it over there. 1905 Garfield Park.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fantastic trophy, right? I got it from the grandson.
Where's the bike?
I don't know where the bike is. There's a picture of the bike somewhere, but 05's early.
05 is early.
Super.
What was he riding though?
A Harley. Supposedly,
05? No.
that's what this is the stories. I got a bunch of articles with it. This is the idea that he was one of their early guys, and he was an engineer. He wasn't a racer, but he raced, and he won this 10-mile race, 1905 Garfield Park. And at the end, there was like a 15-mile race where they all raced it out, and it was on a concrete track, and a fox terrier ran out in front of him, and he hit it. And he cracked his head open.
How'd you
It
find
was
this out?
it was the last time he ever raced. It's all in the history books. Because then years later, he worked for Briggs and Stratton as their main engineer, as their lead engineer.
I did not
years
know.
later. But he came up with the PEM bike, the Mackie motor, that overhead valve motor, the Jefferson.
Yeah.
And he invented all different parts, all different front ends. You know, he was a real engineering mind.
There were some brilliant engineers back then. I mean, they were all trying to make, you know, a faster bike, a more efficient bike, something to climb hills, go faster. And it was always on the racetrack first. They would race on Sunday.
That's right.
And sell on Monday.
That's right.
If they had a nice bike, it was running good. And if it was, Excelsior or Indian, they went to the Indian dealers, guys in the stands, and they went and bought damn motorcycles just won the race.
I know. And I also think when you look back, sometimes the timelines don't really add up for these guys. And I think they're saying they were around longer than they were because it was better for business. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
So they say, oh, we've been around since 02.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can't find barely an 05.
I mean, Harley says they've been around since 1903. I've never seen it.
No, I don't.
I think there's one in the museum that in Milwaukee. I saw that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they really started production in 05.
Yeah. And even Indian, they started in 09, but they only had bicycles.
No, they
So 01.
01.
Sorry, 01. Sorry. Yeah, 01. 02, I have the catalog for 02. And that,
I have an original paint 04 in my shop right now, or old, totally original bike.
Wow.
But the production was low. I mean, but then they were the one, Indian really was leading the pack. They had the most production. I think by 1908, they had 2,500 bikes or maybe even more than that per that year.
Yeah.
And they Harley at that time in 1907 only made 150. So the Indian was way ahead of there.
way ahead.
Way ahead. But they also
were building bicycles for a lot of years before that too.
But they hired
What was the company?
Aurora.
Yeah.
They hired Aurora Manufacturing Company to make all the parts for them until they got a big enough company together where they could make everything in house. So they had from 1902 to 1907, Aurora Manufacturing Company was making all their stuff. And then 1908, India's like, okay, contract over, and we're going to start making our own stuff. And then they started, and they were killing it. But 1913, I think they made 35,000 motorcycles. It was crazy. Indian was definitely on top of their game. They were the most advanced motorcycle in that time period.
Yeah,
and I love them. I'm actually working on. From 19
they're my favorite motorcycle.
From 19, I'm doing all the diamond frames. I'm doing 10 bikes.
Oh, those are fantastic.
I know. And
they're the
I'm
best
making the frames because I can't find the damn frames.
Yeah.
So we're actually making all the castings. My son's helped me out. We're doing all the.
Yeah, those diamond bikes they got the look.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're like very art forward.
And it's kind of like they're the bikes that inspired everybody else to make it go.
Right.
They're the
everything else.
They're the driving
similar. Right.
Anti-motorcycle. Besides the early motorcycle business going on there. So
sweet.
Anyway, that was what the motorcycle stuff kind of was inspired by the money was being made. There was a guy out in California who was reproducing the top ends for the overhead valve racing Indian factory racer, but nobody was making the damn carburetors. Nobody had a carburetor for these things,
and that's the hardest thing to find.
That's the hardest thing to find.
Yeah.
And I had just bought a 1911 Indian, and the guy had a racing carburetor that he said, "Would you like to buy this?" It was like $3,500. That's a lot of money back then. And I'm like, all right, I know what this is. I'm going to buy it. I saw it in Stephen Wright's book. So I went to work to reproduce that carburetor. And I did 22 of those carburetors. Me and my son.
Casting.
Castings. First off, I hired a pattern making company to make the first couple patterns. And then I'm like, I don't want to pay that bill anymore. That was like $6,000. I'm like,
right.
Okay, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm a woodworker.
Right.
How hard could it be to make a pattern? You got to buy the shrink rules. And then, so I took the carburetor and took my mechanical drawing skills, reverse engineered it, made the patterns up, and started making them and did 22 of them carburetors. There's 22 of my carburetors sitting out there. Me and my son, we had a little machine shop in the back. That's the antique shop open. We had a little shed I built, and we worked on a machine and needles and all the parts for the carburetor in this little shed. And it was like, I was the only guy in the world, still am, who makes those carburetors.
Right.
I'd make them anymore. There's that whole ship has sailed.
Right.
Everybody who wanted a board track racer got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So once in a while, I get a call for a guy who wants a carburetor, but, you know.
Well, it's so interesting. I'm glad we got this background because I think a lot of people don't know this about maybe your past from watching American Pickers, which leads me into the next thing. When did you meet Mike? When was the first time you met Mike?
When I had my antique shop. I mean, he was my picker, basically. I mean, I met him at Oli, and
so he used to pick for you and then come sell it to you, and then you'd sell it. I mean, yeah.
He was a picker. He was a guy who he filled his truck up with. He would go and he had a great eye. I mean, amazing eye. And I met him, and he had this. It was a red van. He says no, but yeah, it was a red van at Oli, and it was packed full of cool stuff. He had weather vanes and lightning rods and like old Crocs, and it was an antique motorcycle meet. I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? You know? And he was like. And I bought some great stuff and brought it back to my shop and sold it. So, and we became fast friends. I mean, he was like,
what year was that?
Oh God, it was 30 years
ago. All right. So you guys been friends for 30
plus years ago. So it's been a while. Well, I didn't want to think about it, you know?
I know.
But anyway, so we became fast friends. I mean, and so we started picking together. He's from Iowa, and he would come out to my place. And we would pick the Northeast. We'd get in a van.
And the Northeast is the best pick.
Oh my God. It's like, that's where all the good stuff.
Where everything is.
Everything. So he was smart. What he was doing, he'd come to my place. And he says, I got a bunch of leads. I said, where you get these leads from, dude? So he was getting from the old antique motorcycle magazines from the 60s and 70s. And he's calling them up. He's calling the people up in there. Hey, do you still have that bike? What happened to that thing? What happened to that motor? And he was developing leads for all the antique motorcycle magazines.
Wow.
And
that's really smart.
That was for this guy.
Because some of that stuff was still sitting there in the basement.
One of the things that stuck out would be most about Mike Wolf. The guy is brilliant.
Yeah.
He's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe not book smart.
Yeah, but he's got it figured out.
He knows the business and he knows how to hustle. I mean, the guy he was an inspiration to me. I'm like, who is this guy? You know? And so we became fast friends. And he's sleep on my couch.
Yeah.
He'd be upstairs he'd stay there for like a week or two. I'm like, dude, go home, man. I'm sick of seeing you already. But we'd had a lot of fun. We picked the wherever he had leads. I had some leads. He had way more leads than me for antique motorcycles. He was really into it. He was really cultivating good leads, and he was bringing me along. And then I was bringing him along with some of my stuff that I had too. And some of it, intertwined too. We would know the same people, especially in Pennsylvania and stuff like that, in New York. So we did Hershey together. We did antique shows together, and and we were feeding off each other's energy. He liked my shop, and then I would go to Iowa, and he had a shop out there too. It was a small shop, and we had the Davenport motorcycle meet right down the street from him, and stay at his house. So we was a back and forth. It was like we got along great, So. And that's how I met Mike Wolf. And this is before the show.
Yeah, way before the show.
Way before the show.
Yeah. And I know I've spoken to Mike about this, and I know he had to really beat down a lot of doors before he got his show.
Oh my God.
It just didn't come to him. I know it was years of really trying to sell the concept before it got picked up.
Here's what happened, dude. I would we'd go to our pick, and he'd be filming, or he'd have a camera. I don't know what the little camera was back then, but it was like a
little VHS
or whatever it was.
Right,
VHS, whatever it was. And he would be filming things. He said, like, Jersey, look what I just filmed. And he called me Jersey. He's the only guy who ever never met you called me. He's from New Jersey, and he's from Iowa, so he was like, Jersey. So that's how I got the nickname Jersey.
Oh, really? He gave you that nickname?
He gave me that name.
Oh,
nobody ever called me Jersey ever.
That's pretty good.
So he's the one. So Robbie, you call me Jersey. Everybody in his family called me Jersey. And I hated it.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of grown on.
Yeah. Now you just resigned.
Now I'm like, okay, I'm Jersey.
Yeah.
But I've been no John,
Yeah.
But anyway, so we had a great time, going on these leads, picking things up and making a living. I mean, we're both like, dude, trying to make a living.
Right.
And it's hard, I mean, I had the furniture restoration business and whatnot, but also had an antique shop. I had to, get stuff for sale.
Right. You had to have inventory.
Right. You had to have inventory. And then I also noticed that my furniture wasn't selling anymore.
Right. That was fading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, now what do I do? I got to support myself. I got a family support. I got to figure this out. And that's when antique motorcycles start. I started like diversifying. I taught myself glassware, taught myself pottery. I taught myself early paintings, how to repair pottery and porcelains. I diversified. I changed everything I was doing. I was getting more into fine antiques, going to the show out in Brandywine and looking at really good furniture, watching Antiques Roadshow and the Kino Brothers talking about them and nerding out on these early American furniture. I love that stuff.
I got to tell you, man, that was my favorite show.
Yeah.
Antique Roadshow is like my favorite. I could watch it around the clock. If that's the only thing that was ever on, it was never bothered me.
It's an educational show. It's value based, and you get it, and you really can learn a lot from these people who are explaining what these things are, and also exciting, like how these people have these things.
Right. The story.
The story.
Yeah, the story is always great.
That's what's cool. Like when I started working with the show. And Mike, but there was issues. Frank was really ill, and he couldn't work on the show anymore. And Robbie got on the show. They needed somebody else on the show. Then they wanted me to go on the show. I'm like, well, do I really want to be on the show?
Yeah, I remember talking to you about that.
I was freaking out.
Yeah,
exactly. I did. We did.
Yeah, you called me and said, "Hey, what's this television?
Yeah, what's the television gig?
Should I do it?"
Yes, and you said, yes, do it. And you inspired me. I'm like, and I was like, I was kind of freaking out.
Yeah, well, you were used to, having a job and working and,
So now they were going to take my time. They were going to take, every month I had to go and do this show. And at first, when Mike started the show, first off, let's back up a little bit. Nobody gave him this show.
No.
I mean, I watched him take all these films that he was making of different picks, and he had to get a teaser reel, and he hired, I think it was Crazy Eyes Productions out in Iowa, and this young guy put this beautiful teaser reel together, and it showed him and Frank picking. It was great, man. I loved it. I mean, this is so cool. It's exciting. And I'm like, Mike, this is great. Keep it up. Keep going. And I'm inspiring him. And I watched him. It was like, and then he would try and market it to people, and it's really hard to break into that business.
Very, very hard.
Very, very hard.
Yeah, because all these execs think they know what the best television is, but they're only thinking about what exists, not what can be.
Yeah, so that they want a sure bet. Of course.
They want a sure
Everybody
bet.
does.
Yep.
And I think, I'm talking out of my turn, really, because I really don't know the business. But for what I saw from Mike, I saw him suffer. I'm like, and he would call me up. He's like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing here. He's, he's trying to put two pennies together to figure out how he's going to live, and he's trying to make this show work. It was his dream.
Big sacrifices
he's making. And not only that, but it was just like, he never lost faith in himself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and also I never lost faith in him either. I'm like, dude, you're going to do this. It's going to be great. And it was like, focus on the story. And I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. And he did. And that show is really story based. And, even for me, I'm like addicted to collecting. I mean, I love it.
It's a sickness.
More than anything, I think the thing I love about it, other than the visual and early advertising and that, is the story and the history. I will pay more for history.
I know you.
I love
You're so good at researching things.
I am. That's the thing I love to do. I've researched for days and not even bought the thing I researched, but I got an education.
Yeah.
And then again, like you said earlier, you have the right people in your life. You make the phone call. Hey, your toy guy, your motorcycle guy. Mike's got someone everywhere, right?
Well,
called you on the early.
I was helping out with early motorcycles with him, and and also just general antiques. We were just like antique dealers, and we were sharing information,
right?
And we trusted each other.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you do network. It's a lot of networking.
The networking's big, and that brought me up into a better understanding. And you can't really get an education until you make the risk. You buy it, you make some mistakes.
You buy the wrong things.
Hopefully you do good.
Yeah.
You get rid of some of the stuff that you didn't do so good on. And over time, if you have a good eye and you have some education and you do some investigating, you could do pretty good, because some of this stuff I've gotten at a real reasonable price. And that's part of what I like about collecting. I don't just go and throw money at stuff. If I can't sneak up on it a little bit, I'm probably not buying it.
Find it like stock market.
I like that.
Got to buy low.
Yeah, because there's room in it, and it's better than money in the bank. That's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. You see all this stuff. I mean, even this block right here came out of a Studebaker building, It's
crazy beautiful. And I've always admired the stuff that you've had, and respect you for the history that you save, but also the research that you do to find out what each piece have. You I've learned things from you by
Even those boats I bought from
Yeah.
you, I called over to the Stevenson's Institute, got the professor on the phone. He got back to me with all the serial numbers and told me exactly what I had.
the testing boats from,
The testing
from
boats.
America's Cup.
That's right.
I know that was
America's Cup.
so cool that first off, we both like dig that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we've always gotten along that way.
Yeah, it's not just the flashy
No,
stuff.
it's technical. The piece, how it plays its part in history.
in history, correct.
You know, like you had that big Zeppelin.
Yeah, that's
That thing
Zeppelin
is
over there.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. It's actually an engineering model.
And
They
to
would make
me,
the
it's like a
full-scale thing.
piece of, like real Americana. Like, think about it. It's a piece of history.
Yep.
It's not, it was a piece of history. It had a function. It helped create Zeppelins.
And the quality, you can see the quality. I know you're a quality guy. You love to see quality. You recognize it, and that's a hard thing to see.
It is a hard
You
thing
have
to
to have
see.
an eye for it. Your
You
bike's
do.
a quality
You do.
build. This is what made your reputation together. It's the quality, the design, and also the machining and the fabrication. I mean, it's like nothing else out there.
Right.
You know,
It's unique.
it's very unique.
Yeah. And and that's why I got like a lot of one-off signs. I like to collect one-offs if I can, you know.
Of course, that's the most
that's the
valuable.
key.
We all want the one. I want the one-off motorcycle. You know,
Yeah,
I want
that's right.
I want the first E.R. Thomas.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
I want the first Indian. That's the
Yeah.
first.
What's that? Traub? What's that? Traub?
The Trout, that Matt Walkster's place.
Yeah, that's a great bike.
Dale, oh my God.
I love
mean,
that.
the whole museum is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole world is really cool with the whole antique motorcycle stuff. And that's where, Mike and I really grew together really strong.
Yeah.
Like we were spending some serious money on stuff, and you have to have that courage to do it. I mean, we're talking about, spending $50,000 on a piece of junk bike that looks like crappy.
Right. It looks
Now, what I
terrible.
just
Most
do-
people would walk right over,
Walk
step
right
on.
past it. I mean, you have to see it. You got to understand its history, and you got to know what the value is going to be. And kind of like be, 2 steps ahead of where the value is going, And so we had that bond. And then he's doing this show, and I'm like paying attention to what he's doing. I'm not trying to get in his business with the show at all.
Right.
I'm like, that's cool, dude. You do that,
Right. Yeah.
And he did it. And then like 5 years, nobody wanted it. And he suffered, and he's like, dude, nobody wants the show. Man, don't worry about it. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. And then he got into I guess through History Channel, he got in the back door through a friend of his, and he got an interview there. And he says, Jersey Days bought 6 episodes.
That's all it took.
Dude, so proud of you. That was so cool. I was really so proud of what he had accomplished there,
Yeah.
because, and he tells me the story. He's like, I didn't know what he was going to do. He was like, he wasn't sure where to even go. He didn't have anything lined up. He wasn't expecting this. And he was like, from the seat of his pants, he had a film crew there and directors and, all these guys. He's like, all right, I'm like, okay, let's do this. And he's like knocking on some guy's door. Hey, can we film in here? It was that raw. It's that real.
And that's what made it great too.
That's still what makes it great, man.
It is. And I got to tell you, for the years that I spoke with him, once we got to know each other, I didn't know him back then, but later we got to know each other. And he said, man, your guys' show kept me going.
Yeah.
I saw what you guys were doing, just regular guys making television. And he's like, man, it just kept making me push, because he said, I knew I had something special.
Yeah.
You just got to get other people to see it.
There was nothing like it on the market.
Nothing. And there still isn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Pawn Stars was kind of like started
Ish. It's not the same
Pawn Stars
show.
is not the
It's not as personality driven as far as like different characters where you go visit Middle Earth, where it's just random guy.
I love that part of doing the show. I've grown to really, really enjoy it, to being with people and finding out, like, where did you get all this stuff from and why is it here?
Is that your favorite part about being on the show?
Absolutely.
Is the people?
It's the people.
Yeah,
I
I can
love
see that.
interviewing the people.
It's the
and
engine
talking
for
to
the
them.
show.
And, here's another really important part of it for me now, and it always gives me goosebumps even thinking about it, is that we're going to a house, and I've never met these people before. I have a little idea who they are, but I mean, it's totally organic. We're going in there, and the father's gone who had collected all this stuff. The mother's gone who collected all this stuff. This is a family member, and they're explaining to me, like, this is my dad, and this is his stuff that we have, and we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And you got to kind of go in there, and some of these collections are amazing collections, and you got to tell the story of the father or the mother who's gone through their collection. Oh, I understand why he bought this. Now I see where this is going. because I'm coming from the same background. I understand what this collection is about, and you can see like the evolution of his collection sometimes.
Right.
This
was his early stuff.
Yeah,
and then before he passed, he was
he bought the
collecting
best. He bought the best woodworking plane. He's really stepped up and bought the best, piece of art that he could afford. And so now it's not just we're picking people; it's almost we're doing a eulogy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that is, oh my God, it's such a responsibility.
Yeah, and you could see the respect for the families through the show. And, I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes everything, because it takes a lot to make a television show. But to come in and respect what it is that you're looking at and honor the memory of people, because it's usually their kids or grandkids that are moving things along. Because like you said, they don't have a passion for it. They don't know what to do with it. And they want to see it in a good home.
Yeah. And Mike is so good at that. And,
I know he is. And he gets everyone real comfortable.
Oh, absolutely. And I've kind of learned that from him too, because I was really super nervous starting the show. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this, or I didn't know what to do, but it just worked. He said, dude, you're killing it. I'm like, I am? I'm like,
well, you were just being you.
I just like we're talking here.
Yeah. I remember having the conversation. Yeah. You said, hey, Mike, because I know they would call you on the phone and get your opinion.
Yeah.
But you say, hey, Mike wants me to come on the road and be a part of the show. And I said, dude, you should do it. And I know you were concerned about it because you didn't really care about being famous.
No.
You didn't care about notoriety. You cared more about, am I going to like this? Is this like the next chapter? And how is this going to affect my job, my day-to-day?
I got to pay my bills.
Right, and that's where you were at. And I'm sure, that works out over time.
Yeah.
Apparently you guys work through that a little bit.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, whatever.
No one's getting to do what you're doing.
Right. It's such a great life experience.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so cool. I mean, they treat me really great on the show. We travel all over the country. We meet these great people. We see these great collections, make these connections with people. I make friends with with people,
right?
And we're part of their life now. And you don't realize how important that really is. Like, these are people, we're coming into this collection and their dad's gone or mom's gone. And now we're celebrating them and documenting the family's history on this pop culture media.
Yeah.
And it's there forever. I mean, we're still watching I Love Lucy reruns.
Yeah.
This show is going to be on forever. I mean, it's been on since 2009, I think was the first show. And here we are still going strong 15 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, the show is doing good. Our ratings are way up.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing really good.
It's timeless. That's why.
I guess. I don't know.
I think so. And it's story driven. So we have the same experience. We just happen to create a genre.
Yeah.
We were the first of its kind.
We loved the
dynamic.
The chemistry you guys had in that show. I mean, that's what kept me tuning in on every Wednesday night.
Right. The personalities, we were very real and raw.
Yeah.
There's no rehearsal. We weren't taking acting lessons.
Yeah.
We were the same people on camera as we were off camera.
Yep.
And we just hit at a time where there was a real appetite for it. And it was new. It was new to television. There was no reality shows like ours before that.
It was family driven.
It was family driven.
You had your whole family there. Your dad, your brother, you, and you guys were all like, it was.
We were a little nuts.
Absolutely. I was
seeing
some stuff you guys are doing. I'm like, did you just back into your dad's truck? Yeah, right. I'm like, what did you just do?
Yeah, how many doors can you knock?
Yes, and you guys were it was so brilliant watching that and seeing that. And it definitely inspired me.
Yeah. Legacy shows, Pickers is one. There's shows that were on when we started. So we started in 2002, right? And there were other shows that were popular at the time, not necessarily reality, just shows, but nobody remembers them. They were just there for a blip.
Yeah.
What we did was we came up with a whole generation. We brought a whole generation of people up with us. And, like you said, it's the characters that is the staying power. And even now today, the appreciation, there's like nostalgia for our show now and the appreciation. I'm 50 now. Right. So everybody who started watching the show was half their age that they are now, but now they have kids, some in college,
Right.
So it's a pretty interesting dynamic, but I see it in Mike's show. It's a legacy show.
We have a lot of fun doing it. I mean, I think it was we had a shaky period in there when Frank got really sick and they couldn't do the show anymore and all that was going down, it was we all our hearts.
Did they bring you in because Frank was sick, or you were already?
I mean, yes, I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. But yeah, I guess they wanted a little bit more diversification, not just buying oil and gas stuff. And I had more background in general antiques, furniture, tools, machine work. art, whatever. I mean,
Well, it's the evolution of the show too, because it was just the two of them the first few seasons.
oh yeah, it was.
And then they started bleeding in Robbie, his brother.
And I was doing
and
cameos
then
back
the girl
then, too.
would go out.
Yeah.
They mixed it
Danielle.
up because
Danielle's
the
amazing.
more picks you got, the more episodes you have, and he doesn't have to be at every single pick.
The mechanics of the show had to change.
Yes.
Because Mike was,
But that was
being
good.
stretched out really
Yeah.
thin, and I mean, it was this. I can't believe that he's still
doing it.
and not just that, but pulled this off.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a super strong show. It's amazing, and then we got we have a huge crew, like 13 guys on the road, pulling us across the country and doing all this stuff. I mean, they're all relying on us.
Yeah.
If I don't show up for work, they ain't working.
That's right. You mess everybody up.
Yeah.
And that's the way our show always was too. I will say, man, I'm jealous of these shows like Pickers, and I'll tell you why. Our show was such a process show. It was like 6 weeks an episode.
Wow.
You guys could do like 20 episodes in 6 weeks. Maybe not.
Well,
but
I heard it's 300 hours per episode with the editing and everything. So it's kind of like,
yeah, right. There's still but it's not quite. You can get more done in a shorter period of time, and I think they're half hours, right? Are they half hours?
no, they're an hour-long show.
Are they hour-long shows?
Yeah, they're hour-long shows.
But in any event, our show was so labor intensive. It just was. It was just.
I can't even fathom how that was even. This is all new to me. The production of it.
Right.
These guys blew me away. It's all in the edit. These editors who made our shows put it together. They're brilliant. These guys.
And they got a formula that is tried
They're
and true.
creating something and taking all the little slurs out of my speech. I watch one of the editors and they're like have these 3 screens and I'm on there and they're taking my.
You never sounded so good, right?
I never sounded so good in my life. These guys are making me sound.
We could probably do that. We could do that for them, right?
So
Run it through the machine.
Yeah, so I said, could you please put the Brad Pitt filter on once in a while?
Yeah. What are we going to do with this?
Yeah. So anyway, it's just funny. It's like my life is just like a different. I still work in my shop. I still hold these things I'm doing. I'm working on a marsh mess right now. I was painting yesterday. I don't do furniture too much
You're
anymore.
squeezing in projects.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still
right. Well, I was going to ask you, how are you getting everything done?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Because you're on the road, 10 days, 2 weeks sometimes, and then you got to travel out. You're packing your bags, get your stuff ready, and then you're getting back, and you got to unpack and get your stuff ready. So how much time out of that 10 days or 2 weeks? It's almost just a harder time to start up a project. But I'm making it work, It's like, it's life.
Is it enriching your life? Are you happier for it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you're enjoying it.
Yes, it's a different dynamic to my life, and I'm really, first off, I felt like God gave me something in my hands and my brain a long time ago when I was born to be able to work wood and do all these things, and I was always been very grateful for those gifts. This is just one more gift.
Yeah, right.
One more thing.
Well, he's given you a platform to showcase it.
Yes,
and I've had that most of my adult life, so I can appreciate that because it affords you the opportunity to keep doing that thing that you love.
If I can inspire someone else, inspire somebody the young guys to do what I'm doing, because the craft is getting lost.
100%.
All these old guys who are, welding and
gone, they're going. They're
now CNC and AI is going to take over. There's not going to be craftsmanship with these hands and this mind anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be
We're losing that generation of craftsmen, unfortunately.
Absolutely. So, I want to inspire young people to get involved with stuff, or old people or whoever. Change their direction in life a little bit, inspire them maybe.
And that could really happen at any time.
Yeah.
There's not an expiration date on that.
No.
People can get inspired at 80 years old.
Just one little thing, one little piece of information, one little piece of the passage in a book that I read when I was 12 got me to this point where I'm at now.
Yeah, it's
inspired me back then to keep my energy up, to keep it going, to keep the enthusiasm going. And I'm hoping that our show, and then, they're showing more of me on the show now. I've been pretty steady on it for like 4 years. Since 2020, I've been pretty much on everything going.
And that was a wild time because everyone else was.
We were the only ones filming.
Yeah, no one was filming in 2020.
In the middle of COVID, and we're filming, and we had to get tested 3 times a day. We wear masks everywhere, and then we're making this TV show, and we're the only ones out there doing it. It was like we were in some kind of like strange, apocalyptic drama.
I'm telling you, the world shut down, and every type of filming, any type of television show, they all stopped.
We didn't do it.
It's amazing.
We kept going. It was crazy. It was nuts, but I'll never forget it. So yes, to answer your question, I do like doing it. I'm being, I guess, talked about more on the show. We talk about what I'm doing, like about the processes and the stuff that Mike doesn't really talk about too much because he doesn't know.
Right.
But I want to bring out like how to cast something, how to machine something on a lathe.
Are they doing any of that with you over there? Have they been in your shop?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we
yeah.
film in my shop all the time.
Yeah.
So more and more that's is getting shown on the show, and I'm proud to be part of that.
Right.
Part of that, and not only that, but I got my son. I have my 2 grandsons.
Right.
This is my story.
Yeah.
Documented
Hey,
now.
man, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So this is my book that's getting written.
Right.
And it's
your legacy.
Yeah. It's so I want to show people what I've done and what I'm doing, and keep motivating other people to do something. Perhaps one little thing could inspire some guy, and I see it all the time now. It's working.
You can hear what people are saying to you.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, it's inspiring people.
I had a guy stop me at Home Depot yesterday. I'm picking up some wood, and he stopped me in the parking lot. He says, "Dude, I love what you're doing," and it's not even with the show. We're talking about the Cannonball stuff. Like because he's been following me for a long time, and the stuff I've been doing with antique motorcycles. And I said, "Do you watch the show?" He said, "No, I don't watch the show, but I'm talking about me personally." And that felt good.
Right.
Because the show is not my life. My life is what brought the show.
It's just part of your life.
It's part of my life.
That's all.
So, and I'm glad that beyond it, it's amazing because it gives me that platform, like I said, to showcase the things
and
that
make
I'm
a difference.
Doing. Yeah. I mean,
in some capacity, right?
Yeah. It's cool to do it. It's time consuming.
Yeah.
It takes off a lot of my energy, but my energy's still there. I'm still very damn.
Do it while you can, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to continue doing it as long as they'll have me. They haven't sent the black car for me yet. They get out of here, Jersey. So I mean that's pretty good.
That's good.
But it's Mike and Robbie, and we have a lot of fun. And Mike has done this amazing thing with this show. I am so damn proud of this guy and amazed at him. His energy's up and his creativity, the way he and it's ongoing. I mean, he's always getting new ideas, and he's like when he's on a pick together. He's directing us too.
Right.
And he helps me a lot. Like if I'm getting stuck with something, I have to explain something.
Yeah.
We're just on a big tool pick. And
he'll be like, say it this way, or he'll be like, this is how you.
Well, he just gives me ideas. I put it in my own words.
Right.
But he's like, why don't you hit it from this aspect?
And it's so funny too, because as much as I built motorcycles for all those years and we had all this family dynamic, the one thing that you get really good at is making television because you understand the ins and outs of it. And American Chopper, although there was a production company there, we made American Chopper.
Sure.
All the creative was us. Everything we did pretty naturally, and it was made great content. And we were the ones driving the ship the whole time, for the whole duration of that. They came, they found us, they put us on television, but they didn't make us.
You're the guys, you're the talent, you're the guys who inspired everybody else to do what they're doing. And they're there to document that. That's what I feel about our show.
That's right. And that's the best show you can have right there.
Yeah. I'm just learning not to put my back to the camera.
Stay open to the camera.
Exactly.
Like
stay
this.
open to the camera. Stay open to the camera.
We set this up last night.
I know where my camera is. I'm going to respect it. And it's like, and it's 4 years later.
They had to tell you, hey, John.
Oh my God, I got yelled at a lot.
You got to open up the camera, please.
Absolutely.
Say that again.
Yeah, open up the camera.
That's all right.
Don't stand in front of the object you're buying.
Right.
Talk about it, and and it was like the show is like we'll go on a pick, and that's the contributor, the people who are picking, and then there's a whole nother part of the show, that's the interview. So we have to do the interview. We talk about that day that we're there, and sometimes that could happen 2 weeks later.
Oh yeah, believe me, I did those. They're called pickups, and we did them for like we would do 3 or 4 episodes. I would do pickups for a day.
Well,
all day. I would cross-eyed.
Yes.
But it's good because in the beginning they had Mike Rowe doing it, like in the first few episodes.
That's right. Mike Rowe was on the show. I forgot about that.
And then they started using us.
I love Mike Rowe.
Yeah, Mike Rowe's a great guy. Then they started using us, and it made the show more personal because then we were telling the story in first person in our voice.
Yes.
And that really helped the show. I think that helped people with us in the show, and it got our fan base really invested.
But now I know how hard those pickups are.
They can be.
That's the hardest thing I do.
Yeah, because you have to sound like you and still say what they're looking for.
I've got to explain why did I buy this stuff? What is floating my boat? Explain do the eulogy.
Yeah, right.
That's hard.
But that's part of the storytelling.
Yes, and so
And it's really important to the content of the show.
it's amazing how it works. I had no idea how your show would
Yeah.
work. And now I've got that, got the backstage pass on how all this is created.
Inside.
And it is so much work.
It's a lot of work.
It's
It
a
takes
lot
a
of work.
big team.
It's a big team, but also it takes like at the end of a pickup day, I am
Shocked.
exhausted.
It's the worst. You'd rather
exhausted.
physical
spent.
activity is nothing compared to doing that for hours.
Because my brain is melted. I am just totally, I'm spent. I just gave everything. I just gave everything that I had.
Yeah.
And I don't
Believe me, I was there for too many years.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just like, and it's such an emotional, regurgitation of the day.
It is. And then you got to recall, because if it was not recent, you have to remember the scene, and they try and get you to remember it.
Well, they bring up, they'll bring up some footage, or right. Herschel, my director, is amazing. One of our directors, Tyler's another one, and these guys, they get my recall going, and then all of a sudden it just comes back.
Yeah,
and then
and you're like, oh yeah,
I just remember what I want to say.
Yeah,
because I do think I'll stay up at night sometimes thinking about like, wow, I should say this about this thing or this people,
right.
and I'll get my phone and make a little note, and I'll start writing a chapter that I want, and then I'll bring that into my pickup. Yeah, and it starts to come together. Yeah, and it seems to be working.
Yeah,
it helps me. It's a good tool for me.
It's good. Yeah, we did pickups like once a week for a decade, and we would also need outfit changes. So we would get these like folders of red hat, black shirt, work shirt, blue shoes. You got it, and I'd have a stack of clothes here, and I put the red shirt and hat, do my pickups, change my outfit. I do that all day. Because it has to fit in the scene, or else it doesn't. There's not continuity.
Yeah.
But
they have their own formula for us. It's amazing what they do. When I watch the show, I'm flabbergasted at how well they make me look. Yeah, on the show, it's like I can't believe that this is me. And also that when I'm doing voiceovers on stuff, I'm like, that's me talking.
Yeah,
and Mike, he's great. I mean, he's got a great voice. He has a great emotional intellect. Yeah, and he connects with everything and showing the way he describes his adjectives are really fantastic.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot from him doing that. But also, I'm a reader too, and I have that capacity as well.
All right, being articulate and
being articulate, and also, but getting the emotion into words, like finding out, because it's a very emotional show.
Yeah, it's a descriptive thing.
Yeah, it's right, and finding the right descriptive words, and building that emotion up so the viewer can experience it. And I think we're doing that. Yeah, I mean, it's we get a lot of positive feedback. Yeah, from me on the show. Of course, it's hard to navigate it, especially when we lost Frank. Mm-hmm. We got beat up a lot. Yeah, and it was really sad what people were saying. It was
people come to their own conclusions.
Obviously, I mean, now they're figuring out what was going on, and Mike was really heartbroken about it, and I was supporting him. I'm like, dude, we got this, and now he's like it's good.
Yeah, I know that was hard for him.
Oh, it was so hard. I mean, it broke everybody's heart. I mean, it was so. But here we are. Yeah, we're back. We're doing it, and we're moving on. And we have the wisdom of Frank's presence in the show too. Mm-hmm. It's all there. I mean, he got us to where we're at.
Yeah, he was one of the early angels.
Oh my God, he was amazing. He was a great friend. He was a good guy. And we had a great. He every time he'd come to my house, he buy me something. He brings something. He picks me here, Jersey. Yeah, take this.
Give me something.
I have a Newark News tin that they put the newspapers in it. It was like all embossed and it's got old yellow paint on it. He gave it to me one time. It's on top of my stove. Yeah, in the back above the stove. I love it. Yeah, I think about it whenever I see it.
Yeah,
so he was a great guy.
Yeah.
So, but that's part of the deal. It was hard. The show has got its ups and downs and its own emotional content as well. And now that I'm more and more involved in it, I love doing it. I do. Yeah. I'm just really, really into the whole creation of it and glad to be part of it. Yeah. Really
that's great.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I definitely have a lot of gratitude for, American Pickers, the production company, Cineflix, Mike Wolf, Robbie, Danielle, all these guys who put the whole show together, the crew. It's amazing guys. Yeah. I mean, I'm part of that family now.
Yeah, so, you're lucky to have a good group like that.
Yeah, and we're still going, man. I mean, it's going good. I mean, we just got done filming in Phoenix, and then we're heading down. I'm heading to the Mecum auction in Las Vegas, and then right after that, I got to scoot back here and heading right out again, and we shoot down south. It's wintertime, So we're going where it's warm, Florida.
I don't know. Florida's pretty cold right now.
Right now.
Even in Georgia, it's like 4 inches of snow.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not going to last long.
It's better than here. It's so cold here.
Yeah, it's cold. I mean, it's like zero, So it's in New Jersey here. So, but we can't film these things when it's cold out. We're outside a lot.
Yeah.
So we got to go where it's warm. And then it's springtime. We're going to go hopefully back in the Northeast.
This is great, man. This conversation's been great. I mean, I knew some of this stuff, but not all of it. It's very enlightening. And I feel like the fact that you've never done a podcast before.
No, I'm not really involved with podcasting at all. I mean, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
It's like my time is like really valuable. I want to work on stuff that I want.
Fortunately for me, you're right down the street.
Yes.
So that makes it convenient because you don't got to get on a plane or anything.
And I don't see you often enough.
No, that's true.
It's like because I'm on the road a lot. You're busy as all get out in your life and doing this, and you did an amazing job here watching your life.
Thanks, sir.
And it's amazing what you're showcasing here. The legacy show. Your legacy show is here now.
Yeah.
So it's cool. And I'm glad that you invited me on the podcast.
And I'm glad your son came.
I know my son is here. It's great. It's fantastic.
It's a family affair.
He's been part of it too.
Yeah.
Watching me do my thing, and he helps me a lot. He's the guy. If I have a CNC problem or something like that, because I don't have any CNC computer numerical control machines in my shop or CAD, he's my guy.
Yeah.
If I got to get something done, and we do a lot of molds for the steel molds for motorcycle frames.
Right.
He helps me out, and other engineers as well.
Yeah. Right.
Babak and a couple of the guys.
It takes a village. Cool, man. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming out. Hey, I'll have you back out at some point in time if you're down with that.
Absolutely, man. I mean,
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to maybe come over to you.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd
be fun.
That place is
Maybe do something in your space. We'll just talk about some different things.
absolutely.
Maybe you could show us around.
Yeah, we could.
I'd love to get a nickel tour.
We can cast the carburetor,
Let's do it.
or we can do some nickel plating.
People would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that.
yeah, absolutely. We do it all the time. Always like it's like we're always getting stuff going.
Yeah.
So
All right.